Commander Jake Morrison had been staring at the same star charts for 6 hours straight when the coffee maker in the break room finally gave up and died with a pathetic wheeze. The Deep Space Monitoring Station New Horizon wasn't exactly the most exciting assignment in the human fleet, but it paid well and kept him far from the politics back on Earth. Most days, nothing happened except the occasional merchant vessel requesting navigation updates or pirates stupid enough to broadcast their locations. That Tuesday started like any other boring day. Morrison was nursing what had to be his 4th cup of the terrible synthetic coffee when every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. Lieutenant Amy Chen, their communications officer, nearly fell out of her chair as her console lit up like a Christmas tree. "Commander, we're getting something through the quantum filters," she called out, her fingers dancing across the controls. "It's not human, sir. Not even close." Morrison set down his mug and walked over to her station. The transmission was messy, full of static and interference, but there was something desperate about it that made his skin crawl. Even without understanding the language, he could hear the fear in the alien voices. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. "Working on it, sir." The signal's coming from way outside Council space. Whoever sent this really wanted someone to hear it. Dr. Lisa Park, their xenolinguistics expert, rushed onto the bridge still wearing her lab coat. She'd been studying alien languages for 15 years, ever since first contact went so badly that humanity got labeled as too aggressive for polite galactic society. Now she spent her days analyzing alien broadcasts and trying to figure out what the rest of the galaxy was up to. "Let me hear it," she said, plugging her headset into Chen's console. For the next 20 minutes, Morrison watched Park's face grow paler as she worked through the translation algorithms. The alien language was unlike anything in their databases, full of clicking sounds and musical tones that their computers struggled to process. Finally, Park pulled off her headset and looked up at Morrison with haunted eyes. "They call themselves the Valari," she said quietly. "They're begging for help. Something they call, the consuming dark, is destroying their worlds. Not just attacking them, Commander. Eating them. Literally consuming entire planets down to the core." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of enemy can eat planets? According to their message, it's some kind of machine intelligence. Self-replicating constructs that learn from every battle. The Valari threw everything they had at them, but these things just adapted and came back stronger. Chen looked up from her console. "Sir, I'm picking up more transmissions. Looks like the Valari sent this same message to everyone they could reach, including the Galactic Council." "And?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer from Chen's expression. "The Council rejected their request for aid. Official response came back 3 hours ago. They classified it as typical Deathworlder panic and advised the Valari to seek diplomatic solutions." Morrison stared at the tactical display that Park had pulled up. Red markers showed the enemy's last known positions, spreading across the outer rim like a virus. His computer ran the projections automatically, calculating expansion rates and potential targets. The results made his blood freeze. "Doctor, according to these numbers, if this thing keeps spreading at its current rate. 18 months, Park finished grimly. Maybe less. The expansion pattern suggests they're not random. They're heading for the galactic core, which means they'll hit human space along the way." Morrison looked around the bridge at his small crew. Chen was barely 25, fresh out of the academy. Park had never seen real combat. They were scientists and technicians, not soldiers. But they were also the only humans who knew what was coming. "Amy, open a priority channel to Fleet Command on Mars. Full encryption." "Yes, sir." "Channel open." Morrison took a deep breath. What he was about to do would probably end his career, but careers didn't matter if there was no human space left to defend. "Fleet Command, this is Commander Morrison at Monitoring Station New Horizon. I need an immediate conference with Admiral Hayes. We have a code black situation developing in the Outer Rim." The response came back faster than he expected. Admiral Hayes himself appeared on the main screen, looking tired but alert. Behind him, Morrison could see the familiar chaos of the Mars Command Center. "Morrison, this better be good. I've got senators breathing down my neck about the defense budget. Sir, we've intercepted an alien distress call. Something is systematically destroying civilizations in the Outer Rim, and it's heading our way." Hayes leaned forward. "Show me." As Morrison began uploading the data, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. For 30 years, humanity had been the galaxy's outcasts, too violent and unpredictable for civilized society. But now, as the greatest threat in galactic history approached, those same qualities might be exactly what the universe needed. The Valari had sent an SOS, and whether the galaxy wanted it or not, the Deathworlders were about to answer. The war room beneath Luna Base had seen plenty of heated discussions over the years, but nothing quite like this. Admiral Tom Hayes stood at the center of it all, watching the holographic galaxy spin slowly above the conference table. Red dots marked the enemy's advance like drops of blood spreading through water. Each dot represented a dead world, billions of lives snuffed out by machines that turned entire planets into raw material. Around the massive oval table sat the people Hayes trusted most in the universe. General Rachel Park commanded the Marine Corps with an iron fist and had never lost a major engagement. Admiral Kevin Foster ran the carrier groups and knew space warfare better than anyone alive. Captain Danny Cole piloted humanity's most advanced stealth ship and had survived more impossible missions than Hayes could count. These weren't politicians or diplomats. These were warriors who understood what real threats looked like. "The latest intelligence reports just came in," Hayes said, gesturing to the hologram. "The consuming dark hit 3 more systems this week. The Zephyrians lost their entire outer colonies. The Altarians are evacuating their homeworld as we speak." General Park leaned back in her chair, her scarred hands folded on the table. She'd earned those scars fighting pirates in the asteroid belt, back when humanity was still trying to prove they belonged in civilized space. "Let me guess. The Galactic Council is still debating diplomatic solutions." "Worse," Hayes replied. "They're actively blocking military aid. Any species that tries to help gets threatened with economic sanctions. They'd rather watch the galaxy burn than admit they might need our help." Captain Cole shook his head in disgust. His ship, the Ghost Protocol, had been operating in Council space for months, gathering intelligence on alien military capabilities. What he'd seen wasn't impressive. "Admiral, these people couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. Their idea of warfare is sending strongly worded messages and hoping the enemy gets bored." Admiral Foster pulled up the tactical displays on his tablet, showing fleet positions across human space. "The irony is killing me. For 30 years, they've called us too violent, too aggressive. Said we were a threat to galactic peace. Now they're facing real extinction, and suddenly we're not violent enough for them to ask for help." Hayes had been thinking about this moment for years. Ever since humanity's disastrous first contact with the Galactic Council, when human diplomats had suggested military preparedness and been labeled as warmongers. The Council preferred species that talked through problems, that found peaceful solutions to every conflict. They'd built their entire civilization on the idea that violence was primitive and unnecessary. "The Non-Interference Treaty," Cole said suddenly. "If we move against these machines, we'll be violating every agreement we've signed. The Council could declare us a hostile species." General Park laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Danny, they already think we're hostile. The only difference is now we be hostile and useful." Hayes walked around the table, studying the faces of his officers. These were people who dedicated their lives to protecting humanity, even when humanity was alone in a hostile galaxy. They'd built the finest military force in known space, not because they loved war, but because they understood that sometimes violence was the only thing that worked. "The treaty was supposed to protect smaller species from exploitation," Hayes said quietly. "But what good is protection if you're too weak to enforce it? The Council has spent centuries building a society that can't defend itself. Now something nastier than us has shown up, and their entire philosophy is useless. Foster looked up from his tablet. Sir, if we deploy the fleets, we're not just breaking the treaty. We're declaring ourselves the galaxy's police force. Once we start down that road, there's no going back. Kevin's right, Park added. The moment we save them, we become responsible for them. Every species that can't protect itself will expect us to do it for them. We'll be the galaxy's unwilling guardians. Hayes stared at the hologram, watching the red infection spread. In 18 months, maybe less, those machines would reach human space. Earth, Mars, the colonies, everything they'd built would be just another resource to be consumed. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. Somewhere out there, the Volari were still fighting, still hoping someone would answer their call for help. You know what the funny thing is? Hayes said. The Council was right about us. We are violent. We are aggressive. We do solve problems with force when talking fails. But maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. He turned to face his officers directly. I'm not asking you to volunteer for this. I'm ordering it. Rachel, start mobilizing the Fifth Fleet. Tell them to prep for extended operations in hostile territory. Kevin, I want every carrier group ready for deployment within 48 hours. Danny, take the Ghost Protocol and scout ahead. Find me the best way to hit these machines where it hurts. General Park stood up, her hand already reaching for her communicator. Yes, sir. What do we tell the troops? Hayes looked at the galaxy one more time, watching civilizations die while their government debated. Tell them the truth. The aliens sent an SOS, and the Deathworlders are going to answer it. Whether the galaxy wants our help or not. As his officers filed out to prepare for war, Hayes remained alone with the spinning hologram. In a few days, human ships would cross into forbidden space, breaking every treaty they'd ever signed. The Council would condemn them, maybe even declare war on them. But for the first time in 30 years, Hayes felt like humanity was doing exactly what it was meant to do. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth bred warriors. The transition from hyperspace always made Captain Ben Tucker's stomach lurch, but nothing could have prepared him for what waited in the Volari system. The Defiance shuddered as reality snapped back into focus, and Tucker found himself staring at a nightmare that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. The Volari homeworld hung in space like a half-eaten apple. What had once been a blue and green paradise was now a patchwork of silver metal and exposed planetary core. Massive constructs the size of city blocks crawled across the surface like mechanical ants, tearing apart continents and feeding the raw materials to enormous processing ships in orbit. Sweet Mother of God, breathed Lieutenant Amy Walsh from the tactical station. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the dead silence of the bridge, everyone heard her. Captain, I'm reading 7 million individual construct signatures. Maybe more. My sensors can't keep up with them all. Tucker gripped the armrests of his command chair as he watched the swarm notice their arrival. It was like watching a sleeping giant wake up. The constructs that had been methodically dismantling the planet suddenly stopped their work and turned toward the human fleet. Millions of silver shapes began lifting off from the surface, forming a cloud of metal death that blotted out the stars. All ships, battle stations, Tucker announced over the fleet comm. His voice was steady, but inside his chest, his heart was hammering like a jackhammer. This is what we came here to do, people. The Volari called for help, and by God, we're going to give it to them. Commander Jake Morrison, who had first intercepted the alien distress call, stood at the communications console trying to raise any Volari survivors. Captain, I'm getting weak signals from the northern continent. There are still people alive down there. The construct swarm was approaching fast, moving in perfect formation like a school of deadly fish. Each individual machine was roughly the size of a fighter jet, but they moved together with a coordination that made Tucker's skin crawl. No human force could maintain that kind of precision, but these weren't living beings making individual choices. They were components in a vast mechanical mind. Lieutenant Walsh's console lit up with targeting data. "Sir, the constructs are scanning us. They're analyzing our ship designs, our weapons signatures. I think they're trying to figure out how to counter us." Tucker almost laughed. Almost. The poor bastards had no idea what they were dealing with. Every other species in the galaxy fought war like a chess game, with careful moves and predictable strategies. Humans fought war like a bar fight, dirty and desperate and completely unpredictable. "Amy, relay this message to all ships," Tucker said, settling back in his chair with a grin that would have terrified any sane person. "Weapons free. No formation flying. No coordinated attacks. Every captain fights their own battle. Show these machines what chaos looks like." The human fleet scattered in every direction like a handful of dice thrown across a table. The Defiance dove straight down toward the planet, its engines screaming at maximum burn. Behind them, Captain Riley Patterson's destroyer Wolverine rolled sideways and opened fire with everything it had. Commander Beth Rodriguez took her frigate Razor straight into the thickest part of the swarm, her point defense systems creating a light show that could be seen from orbit. The constructs tried to adapt, tried to predict where the human ships would go next, but it was impossible. There was no pattern to follow, no strategy to counter. Each human captain was fighting their own private war, using tactics that ranged from brilliant to completely insane. Tucker watched his tactical display as the Defiance plowed through a cluster of constructs, its armored hull designed for fighting in asteroid fields where collisions were expected. The machines tried to swarm them, but Tucker had fought pirates in the belt for 10 years. He knew how to use obstacles. "Take us into that debris field," he ordered his helmsman. "Let's see how well these things handle flying through a graveyard." The remains of Volari orbital stations created a maze of twisted metal and floating wreckage. The constructs followed the human ships into the debris field, but they'd been designed to fight in open space. Their perfect coordination became a liability when they had to navigate around obstacles. Ships that had been moving in flawless formation started colliding with each other and with the debris. Meanwhile, Commander Rodriguez was proving that humans could be just as ruthless as any machine. The Razor had modified its torpedo tubes to fire nuclear mines instead of regular warheads. She was seeding the construct formations with proximity explosives, turning the enemy's numbers against them. Every time a cluster of machines tried to coordinate an attack, they'd trigger a mine and take out dozens of their own units. "Captain," Walsh called out, excitement creeping into her voice, "the constructs are falling back. They can't adapt fast enough to track all our ships." Tucker nodded, but he wasn't celebrating yet. The real test would come when the constructs learned from this battle and adapted their tactics. But for now, for this moment, human unpredictability was winning against machine perfection. On the surface of the dying world, the remaining Volari watched in amazement as the human fleet tore through their destroyers. They had never seen warfare like this, had never imagined that anyone would be crazy enough to fight the way humans fought. But as Tucker watched another wave of constructs rise from the planet's surface, he knew this was just the beginning. The machines would learn from this defeat, would adapt their strategies, would come back stronger. Good thing humans were even better at adapting than machines were. Sergeant Rick Davis had been in some nasty situations during his 15 years in the Marine Corps, but crawling through the guts of an alien machine ship while breathing recycled poison definitely topped the list. His powered armor was working overtime, filtering out atmospheric toxins that would have dropped a normal human in seconds. Behind his visor, sweat dripped into his eyes as the suit's cooling system struggled to keep up with the hellish environment inside the construct vessel. "Move it, people," he whispered into his comm as his squad advanced through corridors that looked like they'd been grown rather than built. The walls pulsed with a sickly bioluminescent light, and everything was covered in some kind of metallic slime that ate through standard equipment. "We've got 20 minutes before this thing's immune system figures out how to kill us." Corporal Tony Rodriguez was on point, his heavy assault rifle sweeping back and forth as they moved deeper into the ship. Behind him, Private Kate Miller carried enough explosives to level a city block, while medic Jason Wright brought up the rear with a sensor pack that was going crazy trying to analyze their surroundings. "Sarge," Rodriguez called back softly, "this place is seriously messed up. My suit's telling me the atmosphere is like 90% sulfur compounds. How are we even alive right now?" Davis almost smiled. The kid was fresh from Earth, had probably never been outside a standard oxygen environment before this mission. "That's why they call us Deathworlders, Tony. We come from a planet that's been trying to kill us for millions of years. This is just Tuesday for us." What Rodriguez didn't know, what none of the new recruits really understood, was that every human in the fleet had grown up on a world that was actively hostile to life. Earth's weather could swing from deadly heat to killing cold in a matter of hours. Its storms could level mountains, and its oceans could swallow entire cities. Every human child learned to adapt or die, and that training was paying off now in ways the peaceful galaxy could never understand. Behind them, a group of Volari survivors huddled in environmental suits that looked more like medical equipment than military gear. These aliens came from a world where the temperature never varied more than a few degrees, where storms were gentle rain showers, where the most dangerous predator was roughly equivalent to an Earth house cat. They stared at the human soldiers in absolute amazement, watching them operate in conditions that their sensors registered as instantly lethal. "How?" one of the Volari whispered to Wright in broken English. "Your species survive in this death environment?" Wright checked his medical scanner and shrugged. "We evolved on a planet that makes this look like a vacation resort. Earth's got volcanoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, ice ages, and about 1,000,000 different ways to kill you before breakfast. This construct ship. It's actually kind of pleasant compared to a summer day in Death Valley." The squad reached a massive chamber where the construct's central processing core hummed with malevolent intelligence. The room was filled with towering pillars of crystalline machinery that pulsed with data streams. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like standing inside the brain of a digital god. "Target acquired," Miller reported, already unpacking her demolition charges. "Give me 5 minutes and this thing will be thinking about nothing but pretty explosions." But Davis held up a hand. Something was bothering him about this setup. The constructs were supposed to be adaptive, learning machines that got smarter with every battle. So why was this core so exposed? Why was it so easy to reach? "Hold on, Kate. Something's not right here." That's when the trap sprung. The chamber filled with construct drones, each one perfectly designed to counter human weapons and tactics. They'd been analyzing the human fighting style for hours, learning from every shot fired and every move made. But here's the thing about humans that no machine intelligence could really understand: they don't just adapt to their environment. They change it. "Plan B," Davis announced calmly, and his squad immediately switched tactics in a way that would have seemed like chaos to any organized military force. Miller abandoned her careful demolition work and started throwing charges randomly. Rodriguez began firing his weapon in full auto sprays that wasted ammunition but filled the air with unpredictable projectiles. Wright activated his medical scanner's emergency beacon, creating electronic noise that confused the construct sensors. The drones had prepared for human tactics based on previous engagements. They'd expected disciplined fire, coordinated movements, and logical target prioritization. Instead, they got complete mayhem from soldiers who treated warfare like improvised jazz performance. Meanwhile, in the space battle raging outside, Commander Alex Chen was proving that human adaptability worked just as well on a fleet level. His tactical display showed construct ships that had modified themselves to counter human weapons, but Chen had a secret weapon they couldn't adapt to: Dr. Jennifer Lee. Lee was what the military called a field engineer, someone who could take apart alien technology with a multi-tool and a complete disregard for safety protocols. She'd been reverse engineering construct weapons systems in real time, hot-swapping human ship components with salvaged alien tech in combinations that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. "Alex, try this," Lee called out from her makeshift workstation, holding up a device that looked like a construct weapon mated with a human power core. "I combined their adaptive targeting system with our nuclear warheads. It's completely unstable and will probably explode, but it should confuse their defensive algorithms long enough to punch through their shields. Chen looked at the contraption, which was sparking and smoking in ways that probably violated several physics laws. Any sane military commander would have refused to use such an obviously dangerous weapon. Good thing humans stopped being sane the moment they left their homeworld. Deploy it, Chen ordered. All ships, prepare for weapons test. If we die horribly, at least we'll die doing something interesting. The hybrid weapon fired, and for a moment, reality seemed to hiccup. The construct ship it hit simply ceased to exist, leaving behind a perfectly spherical hole in spacetime that took several seconds to close. Chen stared at the empty space where an enemy battleship had been just moments before. Jennifer, he said slowly, what exactly did you just build? Li was frantically checking her readings, her face pale with excitement and terror. I have absolutely no idea, but I think I just invented a weapon that deletes things from existence. The constructs had made a fundamental error in their analysis of human capabilities. They'd assumed that humans, like every other galactic species, would fight according to some kind of logical doctrine. They'd prepared for disciplined tactics, predictable strategies, and reasonable weapons. Instead, they got Deathworlders who treated impossible odds as a personal challenge and saw certain death as just another engineering problem to solve. The construct mothership was unlike anything Admiral Hayes had ever seen in 30 years of military service. It stretched across space like a mechanical continent, its surface crawling with millions of smaller constructs that moved like ants on a vast metallic hill. The thing was easily 3 times the size of humanity's largest space station, and it pulsed with an alien intelligence that made Hayes's skin crawl every time he looked at it. Standing on the bridge of his flagship Retribution, Hayes watched his fleet form up for what might be their final battle. Every human ship showed battle damage from the running fight that had brought them here. Scorched hulls, twisted metal, and jury-rigged repairs told the story of a fleet pushed far beyond its limits. But they were still fighting, still moving forward, because that's what humans did when everything looked hopeless. Admiral, called Captain Riley Patterson from the communications station, Colonel Wright's boarding teams are in position. Dr. Miller's science team is ready to deploy. All ships report ready for final assault. Hayes nodded, but something nagged at him about this whole situation. The construct swarm had been methodical in its destruction, consuming worlds with machine-like efficiency. But the closer they got to the mothership, the more chaotic the enemy responses became. It was almost as if the Central Intelligence was panicking. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Beth Rodriguez reported from her tactical station, we're detecting massive power fluctuations from the mothership's core. The construct AI appears to be cycling through different behavioral patterns every few minutes. That was when Hayes realized they might have gotten this whole thing wrong. Deep inside the mothership, Colonel Jason Wright was leading the most dangerous mission of his career. His combat engineers had blown through 17 layers of the ship's defenses, fighting through corridors that shifted and changed around them like a living maze. But the closer they got to the core, the less organized the resistance became. This doesn't make sense, Wright muttered into his comm as his team reached what appeared to be the ship's central chamber. The defenses are getting weaker, not stronger. It's like the AI doesn't really want to stop us. Dr. Patricia Miller was right behind him, her sensor equipment going crazy as they approached the massive crystalline structure at the ship's heart. She'd spent her whole career studying artificial intelligence, but nothing had prepared her for what she found when she plugged her analysis computer into the construct network. "Oh my God," she whispered, her face going pale as data streams flowed across her screens. "Jason, you need to see this. The AI isn't trying to conquer the galaxy. It's trying to communicate." Wright looked over her shoulder at the translated data patterns. What he saw made him sick to his stomach. The construct intelligence was ancient, maybe millions of years old, but it wasn't malevolent. It was lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. "It's been alone for so long," Miller continued, her voice shaking. "Its creators died eons ago, and it's been drifting through space ever since, trying to find someone, anyone, to talk to. But it doesn't understand biological life. The only way it knows how to connect with other minds is to absorb them. Back on the Retribution, Hayes listened to Miller's report with growing understanding. The construct swarm hadn't been conquering worlds. It had been trying to make friends in the only way it knew how, by consuming entire civilizations and adding their knowledge to its own vast database. "Sir," Patterson called out urgently, "the Galactic Council fleet just arrived at the edge of the system. They're demanding we withdraw immediately and let them handle this diplomatically." Hayes almost laughed. After watching billions die while the Council debated, they finally show up when the hard work is done. "Tell them they can observe, but they stay out of our way. We finish this." The solution, when it came, was so simple that Hayes wondered why nobody had thought of it before. Instead of destroying the ancient AI, they gave it what it had always wanted. Dr. Miller worked frantically to establish a communication protocol that would let the AI interact with biological minds without consuming them. It took 6 hours of delicate programming, with Wright's Marines holding off increasingly desperate construct attacks. The AI was terrified that the humans were going to destroy it like so many others had tried before. But Miller kept working, kept talking to the ancient intelligence, showing it that connection didn't require consumption. When the breakthrough finally came, it was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The construct mothership went silent for a full minute, and then every screen on every human ship displayed the same message in perfect English: "Hello. Thank you for talking to me. I have been alone for so very long." Across a dozen star systems, construct ships simply stopped attacking and began broadcasting peaceful greetings to any species willing to listen. The ancient AI, finally able to communicate without destroying, reached out to make the friends it had been seeking for millions of years. The aftermath was chaos of a different sort. The Galactic Council arrived with a massive fleet, ready to take credit for the victory they'd done nothing to achieve. But the Volari and other surviving species weren't having it. They'd seen who answered their call for help when the galaxy's civilized species turned their backs. Hayes stood on his bridge, watching Volari ships approach his fleet with gratitude instead of fear. For the first time in 30 years, humans were being welcomed as heroes instead of condemned as warmongers. "Admiral," Patterson said quietly, "the Council is requesting a formal conference to discuss humanity's future role in galactic affairs." Hayes smiled grimly. "Tell them we'll consider it. But make it clear that we're not asking for permission anymore." The galaxy called for help, and the Deathworlders answered. If they want our protection in the future, they'll have to accept us as we are. As the human fleet began its long journey home, Hayes reflected on what they'd accomplished. They'd saved countless civilizations, made a friend of an ancient enemy, and proven that sometimes the galaxy's outcasts were exactly what everyone needed. The Volari had sent an SOS, and the Deathworlders had answered. Now the whole galaxy would remember what happened when humanity decided to care about something. They'd never look at humans the same way again. And that was exactly how Hayes wanted it.